affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on this podcast, on this broadcast. From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Tonight, we're going to continue on this journey we've been on. We're on a path. Yes, we are together. Regarding understanding our nation, how it works, how it's supposed to work. We got our flag that's going to always be there. We got our presidential seal. It won't ever go away because that affects everything that relates to our nation. I'm continuing to pray for the 265,900,000 Americans living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. 78% of working Americans are dealing with that. We got an election coming up, which is right around the corner. What is really important in light of all the dynamics that are presented to us in a nation? Who's going to be the leader of America? What's at stake? No matter what side of the political spectrum you embrace, I think we all have to admit that we've never had a president like Donald Trump. Why am I talking about Trump? Because he's somebody to talk about. And I can say what I want to say. He didn't talk or act like other presidents, predominantly because unlike most who have been lifelong politicians, he was a businessman. It was because he wasn't a career politician that I believe drew many people into listening to him in the first place. Prior to announcing his candidacy, Trump was a well-known figure in America and abroad. He was friends with Republicans and Democrats alike. In fact, he was Democrat. And just like I was. And even when he was much younger, he made comments of a political nature. In fact, because of that, in one of several interviews that he did with talk show host Oprah Winfrey, she asked him if he was going to run for president and even encouraged it. I'm not sure if Trump even knew at that time that one day he would not only run for president, but he would win. If we listen to the stories in the media from Hollywood, activists, actors, and Democrats, Donald Trump is the most racist, homophobic, lying, immoral man alive. For the last 4 years, we've been bombarded. Yeah, absolutely bombarded with this narrative. So, let's take a look at that claim. In order to do that, we must also look at the source from which it comes. It's important. Where is it coming from? Prior to running for office, I never heard Donald Trump referred to as a racist or white supremacist. In fact, quite the opposite. I remember pictures of him with black celebrities and leaders, both in America and around the world, who praised how he reached out to people of all ethnicities with open arms. So, what's the truth? According to Tanisha Coates, who is a black writer for The Atlantic, she said this to Trump. Listen to what she said. She said, to Trump, whiteness is neither notional nor symbolic, but is the very core of his power. Whiteness. Listen, Coates firmly believes that Trump is prejudiced against Muslims, scapegoated immigrants, and defended police brutality. Now, the latest thing is he hates black people. The mainstream media has told us that President Trump is a white supremacist and a racist. It's a comment that I've heard among the black community as of late, over and over again. And if these things are true, then it would be just reckless to support it. Let me ask you, what do you believe? Come on, we're getting on down to brass tacks. What do you believe? Do you believe, for example, that America is, right now, a racist nation? Do you believe that black Americans are being oppressed? Yes or no? Just think about it. Do you believe President Trump is a racist, bigoted enemy of America, particularly to black America? Black Americans are being held back, and Trump is the one doing it. Do you believe that? Let's explore some thoughts together with intellectual honesty. As I consider Mr. Trump, whether or not he's racist and a white supremacist, I have to ask, do we know of one white supremacist who will put his lips on a black baby and kiss the baby? They wouldn't know it. They just avoid it. I've seen the man holding babies, black kids. He had that one baby. I'm going to put it on. I think I need to post that. Had kissing that baby to avoid black people like the plague is what a supremacist would do. I grew up around Ku Klux Klan. I saw how they acted. Also, white supremacists would never put their arms around a black person. They would avoid physical contact at all costs. White supremacists, they can't stand black people. I've dealt with white supremacists and racist white people all my life, and they feel no obligation whatsoever to be warm and welcoming towards black people. In fact, when you walk in the room, they won't even acknowledge your presence, won't even speak. I've done that. Good morning. Don't even look at you. True story. Yet, before, during, and after his election, there are numerous pictures and examples of President Trump physically kissing black babies and embracing black people. Shaking hands with Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson acknowledging him at business meetings, and him getting the NAACP award. I can go on and on. Y'all know it's the truth. There are many other stories which negate a history of racism in Donald Trump, such as when he provided the plane to get needed supplies to devastated areas where non-white people live, where he wrote a big check to help a senior citizen center at the largest black church in Queens, New York. When he helped a homeless black woman with children get housing in Queens. When he provided sanctuary for Grammy award-winning singer Jennifer Hudson after 3 of her family members were murdered. When he gave a black bus driver $10,000 as a reward for saving a woman from jumping off a bridge. The list goes on. Now, lean in with me and let's be intellectually honest. Put your preconceived notions down for a minute. Let's go back and look at the much publicized conflict in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let me stop right there. I remember in the presidential debate, Kamala Harris brought that up. And when he was in Charlottesville, he said that there were fine people on both sides. Everybody heard those. Okay, let's dissect that. That thing has been debunked. That woman flat out lied. Let's look at it together. I have listened to that over and over again. The much publicized conflict in Charlottesville, Virginia. I used to live there. In which a white pride rally erupted into violence in 2017. There were several groups present at that conflict in which the media widely denounced President Trump as supporting a group of white supremacists. But is that what the president said? Let's go back and look at that incident and the comments made by the president. A group of white supremacists held a white pride rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. The reason was to protest the removal of the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. An Antifa group showed up to counter-protest. The mayor and the police were totally unprepared to deal with the violence that ensued. Tragically, Heather Heyer, that was her name, Heather Heyer, was run over and killed by a neo-Nazi. Tragic, senseless death. The press conference itself was charged. The media was antagonistic. And Trump had a combative presentation. They were coming at him with, it was loaded. Out of all of what was said, one phrase eclipsed the thousands of words that were exchanged. The media reported that President Trump described neo-Nazis as very fine people, Only he didn't. In fact, he didn't even hint at it at all. It was just the opposite. He condemned the neo-Nazis in no uncertain terms. So then, who were the fine people he mentioned? The answer? You want the answer? He was referring to another group of Charlottesville demonstrators who came out that weekend. Protesters who simply wanted the Robert E. Lee statue removed, and protesters who wanted to keep the statue and restore the park's original name. This is what President Trump said about those peaceful protesters. This is exactly what he said. He said, you also had some very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of the statues. They historically were important statues, and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. He said there are some very fine people in that group. They were just looking at America from a historical perspective and even maybe something different. A few minutes later, in case there would have been any misunderstanding, he makes his meaning even more explicit. He said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. I heard him say it over and over again. He kept rerunning it. He said they need to be condemned totally. Lest you have any doubts that good people were in Charlottesville to protest the removal of Robert E. Lee's statue, the New York Times confirmed that description in a story they published the next day on August 16, 2017. In that article, they reported good people can go to Charlottesville. While they were saying Michelle Piercy, a night shift worker at a Wichita, Kansas retirement home, who drove all the way with a conservative group who opposed the planned removal of the statue, she showed up and said, look, I want it to stay as a part of our history. And we've come a long way. After listening to Mr. Trump on that Tuesday, she said it was as if he had channeled her and her friends who had no interest in standing with Nazis or white supremacists. In reviewing the transcript of the then President Trump's statements, it is extremely clear that he was not referring to the white supremacist group as good people. He said he was not. Unfortunately, the only way to know that is when we personally do the research and go back and listen to the president's comments. Since the media was unwilling to report it honestly on the event, and so was Kamala Harris in a presidential debate. She flat out lied. The real scandal of Charlottesville is not what President Trump said about neo-Nazis. It's what the media said President Trump said about neo-Nazis. It's a scandal because news reporters are supposed to gather and report on facts, not promote an agenda. In Charlottesville, they got it exactly backwards. If they got it so completely wrong then and have never corrected their obviously erroneous statements, and neither has Kamala Harris, we can come to only one conclusion. We have been living with the consequences of manipulation and lies. Plainly put, ABC, CBS, NBC, NPR, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the others have intentionally spread malicious lies that have poisoned our national dialogue. And it's a crying shame. I got people that hate me because I'll say this. I'm just telling you the truth. That's accurately told. History accurately told. They should apologize to the American people for what they've done. But don't hold your breath. Actually, I have a better idea. Let out a big sigh of relief because now you know the truth, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters. It's our job as informed citizens to figure out the truth. Journalists and the media are supposed to assist in that endeavor. They're supposed to report without bias. Sadly, that doesn't happen in the majority of today's media. They are supposed to help us ferret out fact from fiction. So, when they get a fact wrong, that's bad. When they get a fact wrong and know it's wrong and don't correct it, that's worse. That's not getting a fact wrong. That's a lie, flat out lie, bona fide lie. That's journalistic malfeasance. It's criminal to me. The cry of racism has become a prominent issue in the prompting of the removal of historical statues or name changes of roads and buildings named after historical figures that were once slave owners. They even tore down a statue of Frederick Douglass. My God. It is just one of many such issues arising in our nation that surround the narrative of racism. I believe we need to exercise caution in regards to the removal of statues and changing history as a part of history. Let's talk about it and then go talk about how we progress or how we haven't progressed or how we need to progress. Slavery is unfortunately a part of our history, but we rose above it. My great-grandmother was a slave. We rose above it. My father was a sharecropper. We rose above it. I was a victim of Jim Crow. We rose above it. We don't want to erase what happened. It happened. We want to learn from it. Additionally, I believe maturity dictates that we are able to recognize that there are no perfect people, past, present, or future. Many of those former slave owners eventually renounced and changed their ways. I have wonderful friends who are residents in states such as Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C. I love going to those places. These are states with numerous historical sites, which are now in question, sites named after Civil War heroes whose contributions are now questioned. I have visited those sites with my friends. We took historical tours on those sites, went on a prayer tour, went on one recently. We've never had a problem. It wasn't a problem for us. We were visiting those sites, talked about it, processed it. We're mature people. I've gone to George Washington, Mount Vernon. These are powerful places to experience and process how far we've come and how far we need to go. Are we unable to differentiate behavior from the rest? That kind of behavior from the rest? Are we going to continue to make that the issue that defines us as Americans? Have we become a nation that now makes everything about race? That is racist. Our nation is in dire need of a healing process. The souls of so many Americans have been traumatized. The soul is the mind, the will, the emotions, the intellect are dry, and our desires. Some people have come to realize that they have been through so much that they need help. Maybe others are wondering if they need to engage in a therapeutic process for a few minutes. We're going to look at that for a clinical perspective. People are overwhelmed, traumatized. Is it time to see a therapist? Mental health is often treated as taboo. I grew up with it. Don't go down there talking to them people. They'll say you crazy. That's what I was told. Many people aren't comfortable discussing it even when they know they have signs that they need therapy. But it's been stigmatized. Seeking therapy and counseling has been stigmatized and labeled as something mentally unstable people do. I say that people get therapy so they won't become unstable or to stabilize. The stigma often stops people from seeking help. But the reality is that seeking a therapist can be very beneficial for a person's health and emotional well-being. If you got insurance, call them, tell them you need help. You can go to janiceponds.com, then go to the resource page, and it will connect you with a therapist. People have done it, and they have been totally set free. That blesses me beyond measure because we want to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards an intervention. This is for educational purposes only. I am not anybody's therapist. I'm just educating and prompting people to go get help. People seek therapy for daily stressors, mental health issues, relationship problems, or odd habits. It can be helpful for a wide variety of issues. Some people have relationship problems. They often become strained if issues remain unresolved. Therapy, it can help improve communication, resolve conflicts, work through hard patches. We get in hard places. We need to process it. We need help. There are a variety of couples therapy techniques that help people. There's solution-focused therapy that can help couples with specific issues they want to resolve. There's strength-based approaches. Strength-based approaches that focus on solution building rather than problem solving. There's narrative therapy, involves both partners working together, asking them to narrate their relationship problems, narratives. It helps understand both sides of the story to find effective conflict resolution. There's omega therapy that helps couples to identify childhood experiences that have impacted their adult relationships. People suffer from anxiety. We talked about that in a last podcast. Anxiety disorders is rampant at the highest level it's been in our nation. Yes, it is. Therapy can help you to uncover the underlying causes of your worries, panic attacks, fears. What does it do? It helps you to give a language to it. You name. I say this all the time, but this is what you do. It's structure. It gives structure to helping you to identify the core of the fears. You give a language to it. You name, you explain, you process, you metabolize strategies, skills, and tools for wellness and recovery. What have we talked about tonight? We talked about, we got an election coming up. I'm excited about it. Get out and vote. Vote early. People having problems sleeping. People can benefit from cognitive behavioral therapy where you deal with those cognitive distortions. You're not thinking right. We have trauma. These things are treatable. You don't have to keep suffering. So we're looking at America at the Crossroads, needing wholeness. We're looking at, do you need to see a therapist? Go talk to somebody at least 3 times. Give it 3 times. And you'll know if that's a fit for you. Sometimes it might not be the first try, might not be the perfect fit. You go to somebody else. Pray. Ask God to lead you to the person. You'll know. I know people have just done 4, 5, 6 therapeutic sessions. Totally turned their life around. Along with a support group structure, Al-Anon, Celebrate Recovery, AA, NA. Look, it can change your life. Ask me how I know. Al-Anon, I'm such a supporter of that. Listen, we talked about we're at the crossroads. Yes, we need wholeness. Yes, there's a lot going on. And sometimes we need to see a therapist. Listen, I love America. I love you. You know why? You're my fellow American. You're my brother and sister. We're in a crucial time. We got to support one another. The enemy of our souls wants to divide us, and he wants to divide and conquer. But he's a father of lies, and the truth has never been in him. So if he's talking, he's lying. If he's talking, he's lying. I want to encourage us to pray for one another. I want to encourage us to be with one another. My motto on social media is what would happen if we talk to and with each other versus at each other. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we go together from destruction to dignity. The enemy has a plan of destruction for this country. He wants to bring America to its knees. And I say, and we say, not on our watch. We're going to vote accordingly. We're going to vote according to policies that are going to uphold this nation, that are going to protect our children and protect our Constitution, not one that's going to take us down a road where we will lose our sovereignty and be under the control of the United Nations. That's not what we want. We're one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, as we go together from destruction to dignity. You know what? I need you to go on YouTube, subscribe, share, like, because we're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.